Ever since they can remember, the Haida people of British Columbia's coastal rainforest have been using the leaves of the Thuja plicata tree to fight off colds and flus. In 2010, Professor James Hudson of the University of British Columbia began conducting research on the effects of vaporized Thuja plicata oil on a wide variety of pathogens. What he found is quite remarkable: the complete deactivation of many common types of airborne and surface bacteria, cold and flu viruses, yeast and mold. The Thuja plicata oil and method of diffusion used in this research are now available to spas and salons around the world through Moor Spa Pure Air system. This is a study conducted on the effect of the oil on respiratory viruses. It's published in a journal called the Journal of Applied Pharmaceutical Sciences in 2013. And it was conducted by Dr. Hudson, Professor Hudson. He's actually considered to be one of the top virologists in Canada, and it showed very clearly that the diffusion of this oil very effectively kills off viruses. We're talking like 100% kill off after a period of about 24 hours or even less. So you don't have to have this oil going for long periods of time. It can just be put on for intermittent periods in your house or your room, and it will kill off the bacteria and yeast and mold. As I said, it's not just viruses, but even things like staph infection, MRSA, other types of bacteria. It also has been shown to kill off yeast and mold, which can be a big problem for many people because sick building syndrome is very common now, particularly in older buildings. And so killing off the yeast and mold and other types of viruses and bacteria can have a very positive effect on that. And in fact, one of the other studies that this same professor published was specifically on the effects of this oil on decontamination for buildings. I mean, there's a couple of important points. One is that people often ask, well, can we just put it in a regular diffuser? And you can, but the research indicates that it's most effective when the oil is directly vaporized, not in water, because if it's put in a diffuser, then it gets mixed up with the water vapor, and it seems to be have a more potent effect when it's directly nebulized in the way that you've seen on the actual diffuser. The other important issue is that there are actually 3 different species of cedar wood out there, but it turns out that the active component in this oil is a substance called thujone. There's actually 2 components. One's called thujic acid, and one's called methyl thujone. And it turns out that those are the 2 key active ingredients which have those antimicrobial properties. And they've also found that the way that the oil is both the leaves. First of all, it has to be the leaves from the tree, not the wood. But the way that it's gathered and distilled is very, very important in the process. So first of all, the species of tree has to be what's called Thuja plicata, which is western red cedar. And you have to have the leaves. Also, they found that the closer the trees are to the ocean, the higher the concentration of the thujone is in the tree. And secondly, it's really important that you only use the leaves, because what a lot of companies do is that they go in to areas where these trees have been felled, and they may have been lying on the ground for several days before they actually go to gather the leaves. And during that time, that can reduce the potency of the thujone. And also, very often, instead of actually just collecting the leaves, they'll shuck the leaves off the trees using some kind of equipment. And of course, then you get all the twigs and other bits of debris going in with the leaves, and that also reduces the thujone. And then the third thing is that it's important that the leaves are distilled at a very specific temperature. The distillation process that creates the oil has to be done at a specific temperature, because if it's too hot, then that also can damage the antimicrobial properties, because a lot of this oil is gathered primarily for its perfume properties, and they tend to distill it at a much higher temperature. And that, it turns out, even though it smells very similar, the actual thujone content is much lower. So the temperature also is very important. And the oil that we have that's used in all of these systems takes into account all these various considerations, and therefore has the maximum antimicrobial properties that you need for this kind of application.